So, um, this evening, what I would like to particularly look at is the idea of it relates to a book that I read. What year did I read it? 2008. And it was called Go Put Your Strengths to Work. And it's not like some crazy revelation. I referred to it a little bit in a curriculum at one point, but it did change my life. It's pretty much it launched me in my thinking from being a pastor to being a coach. And so I thought, it might be helpful for me to share some of what kind of the outline of how that book works. So um, let's see if I can make this thing work for us. There we go. All right. So first, it's written by a guy named Marcus Buckingham, and what was one of the founders, the early stages of the Gallup Strengths Finders. But then he went off and wrote this book, and the Strengths Finders has 34 strengths, and I do recommend that you use that you really explore and implement that as much as you can. But this is a little bit broader take on it, and I'll explain how in a little bit. But all of it is based on what is called strengths-based leadership. And it is learning to focus on our strengths and not our weaknesses. It's interesting that in some ways sounds simple, but it's pretty difficult, partially because of the way I think the way we do education, and the ways that our insecurities are developed. If you did a presentation, let's say at work or something like that, and there were 20 people there, and you got 18 really good responses, one person gave you nothing and one gave you bad response, chances are you're going to fixate a little bit on that weakness thing. That's a weird thing in our reality. A strength-based leadership says, look and emphasize or focus on your strengths, not on your weaknesses, because we want to energize our lives to be energized and not drained. When we are focusing on weaknesses, when we're focusing on correcting our weaknesses or even strengthening our weaknesses, it's like slugging through mud. It doesn't happen very easily. But when we can identify our purpose, module three, we can identify our strengths, particularly in our heart passage of module one. That will increase our energy. It will increase our sense of joy. It'll increase our effectiveness in work and life. That for some sounds or feels impossible. And that could be because you've been in a job for a long time, or you can't imagine another job, or finances are so tight that seems like it's an extravagance to be able to think about what you would really like to do or what would be a real fit for you. I submit to you that that's not the case, that it may take you a while to get aligned with what you are, but it won't happen if you don't do the work to figure out what you are, to figure out your strengths, to figure out your purpose, and to figure out what that could look like. When we start to do that and clarify those things, at least we're in a place now where we're starting to articulate it, we're starting to say it and pray it, we're starting to ask God to open doors for it, our eyes are open for it, and God, I believe, will move you in a direction that aligns. But to do that, I want you to consider what was really helpful to me, this idea of paying attention to our strengths. So, our strengths, and part of what Buckingham brings up in this book, instead of the 34 strengths of StrengthsFinder, he makes this simple that our strengths are activities that make you feel strong. In other words, when you are doing them, you're energized before it. You're excited about it. You're energized when you do it. You're energized after you do it. The whole thing is about it fits me. And it's a mixture of both what you're good at and what you love doing. When you get aligned like that, now your work has moved from what the curse describes work as toil, where we are working hard on the land, it's producing thistles and thorns. It's hard to get return from. When we are working in our strengths in alignment with God, it's like His anointing, His presence and power are on it. There's more of a sense of us getting to do, as Kim described, and it's getting to do what we're good at and what we love doing. That work now takes on a heavenly or a kingdom component or characteristic. Weakness, on the other hand, are the activities that simply make you feel weak. They drain you before, they drain you during, they drain you after. Sounds pretty simple, but we haven't often taken the time to consider. So the things when you're dreading doing that, whether it's a meeting, whether it's doing paperwork, whether it's doing whatever, that is an indication that might not be the right kind of like fit for you to at least do very much of that. We'll talk about that a little bit more. So here's 5 kind of steps related to putting your strengths to work. First is, let's break some of the myths. And that is, the big one is, we tend to think that you will grow most if you address your weaknesses, your greatest, weakest things. The truth, however, is you'll grow most where you're already strong. And so in the curriculum, I think I deal with this in the strengths area, and I talk about uh, Tiger Woods in that versus Rudy. If you There was a movie about Rudy. Rudy was a guy who always wanted to play football for Notre Dame. And he was somebody who took care of the grounds and took care of all the kind of like water boy kinds of stuff and all that. But he got a chance to play a very little bit for Notre Dame. So here was somebody that had an exemplary um, work ethic and practice and did everything. But his skill set and his talents weren't very big. Tiger Woods, on the other hand, in his heyday, had the most talent, maybe of, you know, I would say of any golfer that's ever been, and he worked hard. When you are mixing hard work with strengths, hard work with your giftedness and your abilities, it multiplies. So you will grow most where you're already strong, and it will actually be for the most common good too. Myth number 2, or what we want to do in step number 2, is to get clear. And by that, I mean simply identify your personal list of strengths and weaknesses. We'll talk about how to do that, but we want to get clear on what those things are because God uses them both. Our strengths he uses to affect and build others. Our weaknesses are actually what he uses to make us accessible and need the help of others. He made humanity to be in community. He made our families that one of the most difficult struggles of most people's lives is to deal with their nuclear and or extended family and the different challenges there, because we tend to compartmentalize, we tend to categorize and relegate parts of our family to particular roles and stereotype, and we don't receive from each other. We get irked by each other. We actually they make us frustrated and mad. If we can learn actually to receive through each other, then we will all be strengthened. Your weaknesses make you need the strengths and the impartation of others. Your strengths are those impartations and abilities for others. So, what we want to do is pay attention to our energy in the day, in the workspace, to our energy, our joy, our flow, our sense of results. When we do that, what we want to start to do, and we start to clarify those strengths, the things that I do, when I do them, I feel strong. Could be, for me, one of those things is praying for people, but it could be writing, or it could be encouraging, or it could be organizing. Whatever those things are, when we find them, now we look for opportunities to use them on a daily basis. We're recognizing this is how God has framed me and equipped me. Instead of me just looking for a job, we're not worrying about that right now. What we're looking at are opportunities where I get to exercise that. Oh, somebody needs to write something. They don't know how. Maybe I could help them. Maybe I could write it for them, whatever the case is. So we're looking for opportunities to exercise our strengths. When we do that, just small shifts in the workplace, particularly, you say, oh, I can do that for you. I'd love to do that. That little shift can start to make very big results down the way. So we want to go with, as I said, free in our strengths, but we want to do the best we can to put a stop to our weaknesses. By that, we want to do what we can to eliminate those draining things from our activities. Again, back in the curriculum I described, that you got a guy who's really good at selling cars. And when he's on the showroom, I mean, he's just gifted. The guy can sell 2 or 3 cars a day. Trouble is, he hates doing the paperwork. He falls behind. Often, that kind of salesperson, they might be somebody who has a hard time getting to work on time. So they're hacking around a lot. And then instead of doing their reports, they're talking to people at the water cooler or whatever. So then the manager, this is this is how you sometimes can tell the difference between leaders and managers. Managers go by the book. They go by the rules. They want everybody to do things in a same and equitable way. So that manager says, dude, you have not been writing your reports. We need those reports in by Friday. So here's what I'm going to do. Thursdays, no more can you be on the floor. You have to write your reports on Thursdays because we need them on Fridays. So the guy starts a lot, he's loving work Monday through Wednesday, but he hates Thursdays. He dreads them all week. It's starting to have impact on whether he wants to stay at the job or not because he hates the reports. He's forgetting what he did on Monday. It's getting worse and worse. Now, that person, what we're emphasizing is his weaknesses. And we want him to shore up his weaknesses rather than emphasizing his strengths. If we were emphasizing his strengths, what we could do is say, you know what? You're amazing at selling cars. What we want to do is we want to give you an administrative assistant 10 hours a week. And he's going to write the reports for you. And he's going to ask you the kind of questions that you need to do. But we want to make sure that you're out on the floor all 5 days a week. Now, that guy, one, he's loving to go to work every day. Two, he's making sales like out the wazoo. And that other person is getting to serve in a part-time job. It's a win for everybody because we're working with strengths, but we're putting an end to his weakness. Instead of saying you got to do it better, no, we're going to get somebody else to do it for you. When you recognize that and you start to advocate for yourself, you can minimize those draining activities just in even how you talk possibly to your boss. So what you want to do is when you can delegate those to somebody else. If you're working for yourself, you hire somebody to do it. Or you get somebody to partner with you, or you redesign or reframe your job description and you can submit it to your boss and say, would this be possible? This way, I can particularly emphasize my strengths. Again, might not work right now in that job, but as you're learning and growing in these things, it will make a difference down the road. So, what we have to do, though, is when we've clarified our strengths, our weaknesses, when we've clarified that sense of purpose, now we need to share it. We share it and speak it out. So, when you're in a team meeting, when you're in a strategy meeting, and there's a project that comes up and there's different things that need to be done, you are sharing that part of the project. That's the part I love to do. Could be the brainstorming, could be the ideation stage, or it could be, that you come in better in the stage where it's refining it and making it clear and writing up job descriptions. Whatever the thing is that is yours, you're offering it. You're sharing your strengths. That way you get a chance to do it. That way they're not looking just to fill a thing. they're actually putting somebody who's made for it in there. And so when we do that, we're building a mutual understanding. This is what I'm good at. This, if we can align my job description that way, I'm happier, you're happier, we're producing more fruit. So, practical application. This was what was very interesting for me. A personal journal. Keep a loved it, hated it kind of a thing during the week. And so for what he encouraged is just carrying a little spiral notebook and could be at the end of the day or whatever that you look at what you did. I talked, and it could even be as specific as I talked to this person. When I talked to them, it was such a drain. I talked to this person. It was really life-giving. What was the difference? Could be that, when I did sales, or that was great, or it could be I was so afraid of sales that I could hardly work all day. Whatever the things are, you're starting to recognize that energy flow and you're keeping record of it. Some of it could be just that day, but you'll recognize patterns. For me, I recognize what gave me the most energy. I like to teach and train, but what gives me the most energy is actually building people. Well, pastoring does a lot of that I liked. I like preaching, I like all stuff, but it really, as I started to see, this is where I come alive. This is what I look forward to. I particularly like to build leaders. That's what I like best. So recognizing that started to shift how I did my life. So with that, then you redesign your role. You adjust your tasks, you adjust your projects, you adjust who you work with to align with your strengths. You can work with your manager to learn how to do that, but you're saying, this is where I'm going, this is where I want to grow. It could be that it takes some years to get there, but you're moving in a direction. So the takeaways are fairly simple. Stop obsessing over your weaknesses. Start investing in your strengths. Identify them, start investing in them. Don't be afraid to share your strengths with others. False humility doesn't allow the power of God to come through you. When we hide our strengths, it doesn't allow others the access to our strengths. So we need to be in real humility, which is to agree with God's perspective, and we need to be open so that people can have access to our strengths. Those things, for some religious people, religious forms of Christianity that are askew, will feel like a false humility is what we're supposed to live in. Not true. And that we're supposed to withhold our strengths. Not true. We want to offer them for the strengthening of others, but we can only offer that which we have clarified and are honest about. And that daily practice of being aware of your energy, recognizing what's the ebb and flow, where's it coming from, so that we're continually growing in that. And realizing that when you align with your strengths, when you align with your purpose and your strengths, it will bring your best self to work and to life.